retention's really great. It's been a while since we've chucked this tune off.
Good tune.
I love it. May or may not be the last time we use it.
Ooh,
Yeah, well.
something in the pipes?
Well, something. Jesus, should we start again? That's terrible. Nah, it's about it's about on par for how we usually go. Yeah, we can talk about that later. Oh, I'll get around that. That's a cracking start.
Good. Do you need a pillow?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get the elbow pillow out. And kick the chair. Welcome. Anyway, let's try and save it real quick. Welcome today.
Should we start again?
Oh no, we can't now.
Oh,
Nick's cracked savvy.
savvy.
I can have another one.
Oh Jesus.
What is it? Imposter for 10% off something?
Yeah, using code imposter. 10%.
Something like that.
17. Wow.
Code imposter. Savvy.
All right, minute in. Nick Wise, welcome. Oh, fuck.
This is going really well. It's exactly how I thought it would all play out.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah, you've listened to it before. You know how this goes.
Yeah.
You thought it was an act. And it's just really not. Anyway, Nick Wise, formerly, oh no, we do need to do formerly. Or is it a secret? Anyway.
Probably secret.
Yeah, I knew him before he was Nick Wise, but anyway, now it's a cooler name, I'll be honest.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
We'll put it up.
Is it Wise or Wizay? Have you actually
Depends.
looked at the history of it?
It's wise as far as I'm aware.
You love it.
I thought you were making a joke about Vizay and then...
Oh, yeah.
nice.
Oh, I don't know what they talk about.
No,
We don't talk about workplaces.
no, we might have to keep that one off here.
Yeah, well, I mean, old mate's not allowed to talk about his workplace.
I don't work.
True. Well, you don't have a place of work. Or work. No, you just don't do either.
No.
You don't have a work or place to be. You're not allowed in the place and you can't work. Anyway. Right, anyway, Nick Wise, mate of mine. We played footy a fair while ago.
Long time ago.
It was a long time ago. We also used to go to the gym, talk Ronnie Coleman stuff all the time. Used to get massive. And now
I don't know, maybe not get massive. Took lots of caffeine and beta-alanine and pretending we were getting massive, but
yeah, but you were what 15 kilo heavier than you are now.
true.
So you were gym bros.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word.
Yeah. Everything was. It just made that weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have used a button then, but you chose not to.
Well, I don't know what the weird button is. Mate, no, maybe
That's probably...
Maybe, yeah.
probably
that's as
what
close
you
as I have to the weird button. Anyway, so Nick, how old are you, Nick?
33.
33 now. Right. And then, so we played footy. I wasn't a massive fan
Aussie
of
rules?
cardio. Yeah, Aussie rules. Yeah, sorry. I should probably clarify for the people up there
It's the
want
only
to
real
talk
footy.
different. No?
Just got cancelled.
Did I? If that's what cancels me, I'm not even going to be angry with that. So we used to play footy, used to do gym, just be like real gym bros, mad for podcasts. We weren't into podcasts, mad for pre-workout and that sort of stuff. But now you're a city boy, used to play Aussie rules, and we did weights. And now doing
that was before,
cardio.
So before you were a city boy, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since then, we've got a couple of things to talk about. Now you're a farmer. We can talk about that transition from city to being a farmer. And then you've got from like being able to defend yourself to now running away from stuff. You can do that now.
Yep.
What do you, triathlons or running?
Triathlons.
Yeah, so he does triathlons now.
Well, have done. Wouldn't say I do them because that implies that I regularly partake and I'm good at it. So
I've seen pictures of you on the Instagrams.
it's all about the socials.
Yeah, so there's enough photos now to say that you do cardio. And then what was the other one? Oh, and then after you got super light so that you couldn't get knocked out because people are worms at your weight, it's like you started doing a boxing fight.
Yeah. Well, I had to try and defend myself again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a fight or flight. So you used to be able to fight and then you did into the flight part. Now you're trying to do both.
There's balance.
But only as a little kid size. Only with 12-year-olds.
You can't even defend that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I reckon, and then afterwards we'll talk Merry Christmas because it's going to be Christmas. And then we'll talk about future of the pod and we'll say good day to Fitzy at some point. You're just throwing comments because he's been providing zero value this morning.
Yep.
He's but anyway, Nick, let's run me through.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Albury till I was 12 and then we moved to Melbourne and I became a city kid. Spent a little bit of time in Vietnam when I was in high school for my old man's work, and that was a fight or flight sort of situation growing up over there.
How long were you there for?
In total, about 3 years.
Yeah,
so
right.
Moved over there.
Well, now you can go. It's a flashback.
Yeah, that's good. So what age
yeah.
were you? What age
I moved over there when I was 15.
Yep.
And then
You hadn't heard that before.
no, well, not live, so maybe it's different. I don't know.
I'm so confused when you started talking about your past, and you're like, yeah,
I wasn't sure if that was like some sort of.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, moving on really quickly. Yeah, it's a rock show. No, I moved over there when I was 15. Moved
That goes
back
longer than I thought.
when I was 18, so that was a bit of fun. Halfway through year 12, had to restart when I moved back to Australia.
Interesting. And you went to school obviously in Vietnam?
Yeah, so it was a British international school, which was strange. It was called British International School, but up to a certain point, it was actually based on an American-style curriculum, and did the International Baccalaureate, which was unnecessarily difficult, I think, for high school. But anyway, it's really hard watching you do these sort of things.
Did you?
Hey, you're on a podcast. Don't watch what I'm
Did
doing.
you learn the language when you were there?
I learned enough to probably get myself out of trouble, let's say. But yeah, I couldn't speak a word of it now. But I knew enough to understand what was going on and question certain things, whether it be, at food markets or get in a taxi and say, hey, I need to go to this place.
Difficult language?
It depends what languages you may have experienced in the past. I learned a bit of French in high school, and it's actually kind of a Latin-based language. So I was able to pick it up probably a little bit easier as a result of that. But yeah, coming from Australia where, we have English and swearing as our main forms of communication.
We can learn German, we can learn French, we can learn Indonesian, take your pick.
Yep. But then
each school you'd go to, it's going to be something different, so it's hard.
And practicing it in Australia isn't really a big thing. So, learned enough to get by, basically.
Okay. Yeah. And then so 18, you come back to Australia and you've got to finish off year 12, you said?
Yeah, so I basically restarted year 12 and lost all motivation for studying. So I had wanted to be a doctor or a surgeon or something, and basically came back and thought, you know what, dropping out of school is probably not a horrible idea, but stuck to it because that's what the parents wanted me to do. And then went off to uni and got the piece of paper and the big debt associated with it all. So,
what did you study at uni?
Did commerce and focused on management and commercial law, which in high school, all business management stuff was easy for me, I guess. So it was just picking the easy route. And that's sort of what I do now for the most part, other than the farming, which Chris alluded to.
Yeah, right. So we can't talk about your current job, or we can talk about your current job? You've got two current jobs?
Sort of. One's more helping out the in-laws, I guess, but I did it full-time for a period of time, so can talk a little bit about the current job, but maybe just leave some names.
Okay, cool. We'll get back to that one. So
yep.
you've finished year 12 and your uni, and you've done that. Whereabouts were you living at that stage?
At that stage, I was in around Chris's old area, the old haunt in Surrey Hills or Canterbury, around that area in Melbourne.
Yep.
And I was straight out of uni. I started working in Hallam, so it was chalk and cheese.
Lovely area,
Yep, that's one way to put it. But I would get in my car and I'd drive to work, and I would lock the doors of the car when I got there, and same on the way home. So, that kept me occupied and out of trouble for a little while. So that was in manufacturing, managing a food manufacturing place there, and did a little bit of personal training and everything on the side of that as well, because I liked fitness, and having done all the gym stuff with Chris straight out of footy, I thought, well, maybe there's a career to be made in this. But
so with footy, Chris is obviously someone that didn't run much when he played. He'd like to just sit there as a weight somewhere. What about yourself?
I was a ruckman. Carried kilometres. This is bullshit.
Yeah. No, I typically played in the midfield, so I'd make Chris look good with, he'd tap it a certain direction.
Done that.
Mate, Fitzy does it as well. All right.
Yeah.
We get it. All right. You blokes run around doing whatever.
And then so obviously you've got a bit of a motor on you, and then you've started doing some stuff with Chris.
Yeah, and things.
You both have to have motors. keeping up with me. That's why Fitzy runs 100K marathons now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made him work back in the day.
Because he was having to keep up with you on the one wheel or?
No, my one wheel runs out of battery when I go with Fitzy.
Yeah, I don't know. I had to make him look good, so that's why I had to run a lot.
Yeah, right.
The ball could be tapped anywhere, but if I picked it up, well, the ruckman's doing their job, right?
Yep. If he picks it up, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've started doing a bit of gym and stuff there and doing some personal training and was that work that you were doing or were you still using your degree at that stage?
No, well, I was doing both. So I was running a factory by day, so to speak, and then training people by night.
Yep.
It was just a little bit of a extra money on the side, I guess, and something I thought I was passionate about. But I actually found it really difficult when you have the same person come back week after week and they made no progress because they hadn't necessarily followed what you'd tried to guide them. So I found it quite demoralising.
But they were paying you though, weren't they?
They were, but it to me it was like the money was good at first, but then you think, well, why are you actually doing this? It's to help people, and if they can't even help themselves, I don't actually want to take the money off them. I found that quite difficult.
Sounds like a you problem.
Yeah.
Plenty of personal trainers like, yeah, they're not making gains and they continue to come.
You obviously don't have a career in politics.
No, that's probably fair. There's a bit of shade being thrown, but I'm not against it. Good crack.
Yeah, no, I love it. Bit of savvy, lemon lime. Mm-hmm. You just go Foster 17% off. Not every politician's a bad person, mate. There's like 2 of them that I know that are pretty good. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So back to personal training. I found the same thing. You know, like when we had like different mates of ours that come from footy, and they'd be like, "Oh, let's go to the gym." You'd rock up, and then there's about like 2 weeks in, they'd be like, "Yeah, this isn't for me." You're like, "Yeah, cool, head off." Or there'd be other ones where you'd literally have to drag them time and time again to like come up to the thing, and you'd be like, "I just can't be bothered." But when people paid me, I was like, You can do as little as you want, man. I don't care. And that's 3 out of the way. You don't need to worry about it anymore.
That was quite good because it was kind of like you sitting back and just cracking a cold one because you're taking money from people. So it was good timing.
Oh, he was waiting for it.
Yeah,
Nick Berry.
The slurping on the microphone really gets me as well. He's pretty good at doing the slurp. But yeah, like so we had other people that would turn up, but like if they're paying for it, I was like, you can put in as much or as little as you want because it's your cash, it's your time. You're paying for me to be here. But like when people are like, "Oh, can you train me?" and you rock up and they're like, "No, it's too hard." I'm like, "Get out." It's like, I'm not interested.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty good times. So after that, I'm assuming you didn't stay doing that long.
No, well, I fast forward a little bit because if I was listening to this, I'd be a little bit bored by now. So you can probably go.
Man, I'm surprised people listen at all. It confuses me daily as to why there's still another person listening.
You've got 2 jobs going, and you're obviously trying to support. At this stage, was it just yourself?
So I was just trying to support myself at the time.
Yeah.
Because I was in my 20s then and thought I was going to be a millionaire influencer like all the other PTs out there, and obviously
still time.
There is. I'd probably need to get some tips from you on the social side of stuff now that everything's booming.
Oh, massive. Yeah. Massive now. Yeah, I'm almost at 1,400 followers on the podcast. So that's a pretty massive deal, yeah. I mean, more people voted for me in the last election, but, we'll get there.
I think we're lucky that a lady let you hang a sign on her fence.
Oh, not just hung it up, screwed it in. She's like, just screw it onto my fence.
That's not a euphemism, is it?
No, legitimately.
Yeah, good.
I had a billboard on the side of the road, and then
saved his election.
Yeah, but and to be fair, like after it happened, people like mates of mine were getting their kids to jump out and like take a photo of their kids giving me the finger and stuff. It was great, and I'm thinking in future every 6 months I want to get a new one. Just put it up for a couple of weeks. Just like, hey, like cool Jesus and stuff like those photos, and just be like, yeah, how you going? It's not advertising anything, just hey, look at me, I'm still here.
It's very topical coming into Christmas too. Well played.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's too many other things about Christmas carols and stuff. Maybe in the new year though. New year, new councillor, get around me.
Could be a thing.
It'll. I like it. I like the idea of it. It's like, and it was like $350 for it. Like, I mean, it's funny. There's definitely better things I could spend the money on, but it's also just a big weekend.
Could you do it as a calendar thing? So once a month is
Oh,
thing?
Yep. Yeah, could do that. Old mate will just go in there and slap a new thing on the front of it. Anyway, this is about Nick, not about
We always turn it back to you.
Yeah, well, it's probably fair.
The humility is what
I'm
really,
a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big deal now, so.
So, sorry. You're working 2 jobs and you're managing another place. Can you talk about what you were doing then? Or
Yeah, I was just managing a food manufacturing factory. So whatever that entails, just making sure that people knew where they were meant to be and what they were doing, and the quality was right, and making sure people got fed. It was really interesting through the time in our lives that we probably don't want to mention, with 2019 onwards, but I was working for a factory that made cake, and that was classified as essential work, which is controversial.
Mate, cakes are essential.
pretty much everything was essential work. If you had a job in the end, it was all essential.
Yep.
It went from a few to pretty much everything was essential. So,
look, I'm not mad about it because it meant I got to keep turning up to work every day. But that was an interesting time. And then met my lovely wife a little while after that, and I guess we decided, well, we're going to want to have kids. Let's move near your parents, because she's an Italian background, so there's many people to help look after the kids. That was my way of looking at it, I guess. And her family's from Shepparton, or Durrangole specifically, which is just outside of Shepparton. And that's how we've ended up there now.
So you moved. When did you move to Shepparton?
It was mid-2021, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've only been up there for a few years now.
Few years,
what do you think? Is it the first time you've ever been rural?
Well, I grew up in Albury, which is, kind of rural, probably not quite the same, but I always thought I didn't necessarily want to go – oh, that's good. Didn't necessarily want to go back to a regional or rural area, but now that I'm there, I probably prefer it and don't really enjoy going back to Melbourne when I have to. So, yeah.
Yep. So you've gone from there, picked up work in, I take it Shepparton or someone near
in
Shepparton.
Shepparton. Yep.
And you're still doing the personal training stuff?
No, I gave all that away. I did it again for a little while, but it was, again, that sort of thing where money is a good motivator, but at the same time I was doing it to try and help people, and they just weren't helping themselves. So I found that really conflicting for me, I guess.
Yep. And so you've so you're working up there now. You're loving life up there. You've got a wife, and any kids?
Yeah, got 2 boys, 2 under 2, which was a strategic choice, but I think in hindsight,
I was going to say, and in hindsight, not a good strategy. This will be one of those things that's like, in 10 years' time, you'll be like, that was pretty good.
Oh, look.
Like at the moment, you're like, yeah, we could have thought this through better.
Short-term pain.
Yeah.
On paper, it makes a lot of sense because, like you say, in 10 years, they'll be best mates, hopefully. But
if you've just closed, like by the time the other one's out of them, the next one's in on them.
Yeah, we're already going through that now. It's working out very well.
Co-defendants.
Yeah. Just co-offenders.
Always looking for the positives.
Always.
Yeah. So
get them working up till, what is it, 14, and then they get in trouble. So you're like, yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So you're obviously a little bit out of town in Shepparton. You're out in the.
We live in Shepparton. My wife's family, they've still got the farm in Durrangole.
Yep.
Which for a period of time I was working on essentially full time.
What sort of farm is it?
A dairy farm.
Dairy farm.
Yep.
So early mornings.
Early mornings into late nights, and the period of time when I was working there was also helping them out a little bit, build their dream home.
Yep.
But the reason behind all that was, and I'll probably get in trouble for talking too much about it, but my mother-in-law had some fairly big health concerns, I guess. So me moving into that role was to support the family, make sure everything could keep moving along and she could get the support she needed from my father-in-law. So.
Yep. And how long have they had that farm? Is it generational?
It's generational. So my father-in-law's parents, they started it as a beef farm, or pig farm and beef farm originally, and then realised that dairy farming was probably the way to go, and that was well over 60 years ago.
Yep.
And then my father-in-law took it over in 1992, and he's been working it ever since.
Yep. Are you finding that when you first started, are you finding that you found muscles that you didn't even know you had?
We were talking about that in the gym yesterday, actually, because I think despite the fact that you're essentially working out all day, my body felt better because I was probably using the core strength and all that sort of stuff that we always talk about.
Yeah.
But now that I'm back sitting in an office chair for most of the week, everything's starting to hurt again, ironically. So, but yeah, there's definitely something behind the phrase farm strength, because even at now 60 years old, my father-in-law would still probably be able to do more than I can do.
One of my best mates is a dairy farmer and probably the fittest bloke I know. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He always was in school as well. Always was when we were younger, he was like a man.
Yep. Yeah, it's quite crazy. You watch how easily he would just find the handles, let's say, of a calf and move it really easily, whereas I look like I'm stumbling every time. So it's quite admirable.
Right, I see. So dairy farming, and is that something that you are wanting to get more into, or are you sort of just at the moment part-time sort of thing where you're just helping out? But
it was just sort of helping out and stepping away from my previous role for the period of time. I did have to have that discussion with my boss at the time of it's not really something I want to go into full-time because I guess managing factories is something I find far easier than being out on a farm for 17 hours a day.
Yep.
But I do enjoy the physical side of it to some extent, getting a bit of sunshine and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know that it's something I could necessarily do full-time all the time, if that makes sense. So.
Yep. And Chris said before that when you were doing your gym stuff, you said you're about 15 kilos heavier.
Thereabouts, yeah, probably. Yeah.
So because you're pretty slim now, you look like you're fairly fit. So you're I don't know, what would you be? Probably 70 kilos?
On a good day, about 77 kilos, and reasonably low body fat, I guess, at that. But at peak, let's say, I got up into the high 90s, and felt very strong. But the irony was I couldn't do a pull up. So, whereas now I can do plenty of pull ups, but someone could probably take me off the machine and say, hey, I'm using that. So
I think that's the thing, isn't it? The difference with fitness. Some people feel better when they're throwing weights around. Other people are better when they're doing cardio.
Yeah, and I think something that I'm starting to lean into a little bit more is recognising what my body's natural form is, if that makes sense, and probably is sitting at a lower, leaner weight.
That was the thing that was interesting when we were doing footy, and I was like, trying out for whatever I was trying out for, Australian Idol or whatever. And we were, so I was getting a lot fitter. But just playing footy, you were like, man, it's obviously paying off or whatever. But I was heaps lighter as well. Like I was down to 91 or something. My knees didn't hurt anymore. My back didn't hurt anymore. But geez, didn't feel great about myself a lot of the time. It was weird, like not being able to lift, not being able to do other stuff. Like I just felt weak. It's like, but geez, I loved going up and down stairs at work. I was just like, I'm not having a heart attack anymore. But then I got back over to like 104 or whatever, and like going up the 2 flights of stairs to get to the top. I could tell. I was like, my knees hurt by the time I got to the top. My heart was hurting.
Yeah, but you could bench more than everyone in the office. So
yeah, but I was pretty happy. It's weird. Like it's a weird psychological thing. What like I feel better being able to lift heavier, but it's embarrassing being out of breath because you're not doing anything. Like when I was playing gridiron as well, like any further than 5 meters was unnecessary.
Yeah, because you were like in that sport.
Yeah, but I was just trying to move 170 kilo dudes. Yeah, so I was like, all right, it's 1 rep max and it's all out effort for 5 to 10 meters, and that's at most you'll have to do. But then like you get out of the car and you're like, trying to catch a tram or something. You're like, nope, that's me done. I'm having a heart attack. This is terrible. But yeah, it's funny. I think dudes that surf and stuff, they seem to be sort of midway. Like they've got a fair bit of size on them because they obviously have to sprint for it, but then they have to swim all the way in and out, so their cardio is pretty good. But that's probably where I'd look at going if I was actually not too lazy to get to the beach.
Yeah, I noticed you've got a surfboard, but when's the last time it actually got
it's
a run?
in as new condition. Yeah, last time I went in the water was Cronulla when I lived up there for a bit. That was probably 2010.
We should turn this into a podcast about your history now.
Nah, I've already done that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've done that a few times. And most times we get on here, I talk about me. So it's Berso's narcissistic podcast. So I think it's what's going to be turned next year.
Interestingly enough, I was thinking about, I feel like the biggest imposter on here when you listen to some of the guests you've had. But
it's the Imposter Podcast.
Yeah, we've come full circle.
Yeah. Oh, you've made it, mate. You've made it. You're one of the big dogs now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing I want to do, Fitzy, is look at challenge coins and put them like engraving on there. This is probably an off-air conversation.
Probably.
Anyway,
I think you realise that from the look I gave you.
Yeah. Yeah. Time and a place, mate.
Maybe not the time for let's chat about what we're going to do with imposter coins.
Oh, we'll do it later, though.
Should we do imposter coins?
Just wait.
Call in now. Give us a heads up. Anyway, what was Nick talking about?
Being a Shepparton, working
Yeah.
on the farm, balancing things. So you've obviously the gym, doing all that sort of stuff has still been I take it you're still going to gym or was still going to gym?
I ended up joining a boxing gym for no reason other than it was better than what the local franchise one was. It was supposedly 24/7, but you got kicked out at 10 o'clock at night. So it joined up at a boxing gym, which ended up leading to me doing a 12-week training camp, I guess, which ended up in a boxing match, which is not something I necessarily thought I'd ever do. I always found boxing interesting, and then that opportunity came up and I said, I'll give it a go. And thoroughly enjoyed it, but I think there's been limitations put on how many fights I may or may not be allowed to get into.
With your 12-week challenge that they started, was that fairly intensive cardio and training you how to fight?
It was a lot of the basic skills of boxing, and then the cardio, there was some principles sort of thrown at us of how to keep fit, but then it was choose your own adventure as well about how fit you really wanted to get.
Yep.
I obviously...
Did you take it very seriously?
Absolutely, because there's not many things that I don't try and do at 110%.
Good, and so you went in with this 12-week plan of like, I'm going to get damn fit here, and I'm going to be...
Yeah, so I was, going to at least 4 fight classes a week. So it might be 5 a.m. in the morning, I'm on the heavy bag class, and then that night might be with the actual fighters that know what they're doing. And I think that was the best thing I did, was not just sticking to the 12 weeks of, we're all beginners. I threw myself in the deep end with the guys that knew what they were actually doing. And you quickly realise that it's going to hurt when you get hit, but it's not going to hurt for long. And this is how you get away from getting hit, basically. So,
Did you spend any time in a meat freezer?
I can't confirm or deny that because there's probably some listeners that might get offended. No, I didn't. I don't know if that really is a strategic way to become a boxer, but it works for some individuals, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any stair climbs, any of that stuff?
No, I don't think there's enough steps in Shepparton because it's very flat. So
it's a flat place,
yeah.
All right, so you've done how many fights have you done now?
Just the one.
Just the one.
And
how'd you go, KO?
Nah, look, I got an L, which I wasn't real happy about. But discussions afterwards suggest that it may have been rigged. Not really.
Here we go. It's a rematch. He's calling it out.
No, look,
it's a best of 3.
Who are we calling out?
I don't want to call anyone out because the bloke I fought against, we actually became pretty good mates through the whole training.
Doesn't sound like it.
Sounds like you really need to call him out, or he's not really a mate.
Well, no, look,
is he one of the Fury brothers?
First and last name.
At the end of it all, I still looked very pretty, and I'm very humble about it, but he had a lot of blood all over his face. So in my mind, I won.
Yep.
The scorecard doesn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. Just make sure you send him a link to this podcast.
When is the rematch?
Are we doing a rematch?
Do you want to rematch him?
Jeez, this is really going full on, isn't it?
Yeah.
But,
let's do it.
We love a call out.
We've been trying to start internet beef this whole time, but if we actually have a fight, that'd be amazing.
Look, his words to me after the fight was he never wants to step in the boxing ring again. So as far as I'm concerned,
so he's
that's
retiring
a win for me. Yeah, I've retired him.
Yeah, fair cow. Yeah.
Sounds like a win for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's a really good bloke. So if he does listen to this, well fought. That's all I'm going to say.
Right, okay.
Was there at any point when you did you sign up on a whim, or were you pretty confident? Or was it like, because I remember I was sending you stuff about the podcast dudes that are fighting. Have you seen that stuff, Fitzy? So there's like, there's some Royal Rumble sort of thing with a whole bunch of podcasters that are just going and fighting each other.
Sorry, you did. It was another one of those things that I looked at.
And then just ignored you. And then just for a bit of background on that, I literally just sent him the update of all the stats we've had for the year, and I asked him a question. He's like, yeah, I saw that. No interest at all about the podcast.
None.
Anyway, that's how it started with the boxing thing. And then next minute, Nick's like, I'm actually doing one. And I was like, right.
Well, I'm always here to support you, have been since day one. So, I've got to carry the team some way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just supporting me. I was just calling me out the fact that I said something and didn't do it, which is fair. Because I didn't.
And to be fair, there is one person that listens in Shepparton.
Besides Nick? Or
No, that was it. Remember, there was that one person that came up in Shepparton on your map.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's probably his wife, though, not even Nick. She's a big shout out to Sarah.
Yeah,
well done.
She's going to love that. She might even listen to this episode.
Yeah, it's unlikely.
No, probably not.
She's too busy being a mum and stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, so what's been the biggest challenge for you going from like being a lifter to triathlons, doing a 12-week thing to getting into a fight? Yet. Haven't we?
No.
Oh, that was before. No. You did triathlons before the boxing, though.
I'm guessing you're still doing triathlons.
I haven't for a while, and look, if I'm honest,
don't make me go to Instagram, mate. How long's a while?
I think the last time I did one was Australia Day this year.
That's still doing triathlons.
So, yeah.
And so did you start doing those in Shepparton as well?
Yep. So the first one was actually swimming in the Shep Lake, which if you've been anywhere near that, you know that if you can survive that, there's probably not many pandemics that are going to get you because there's some questionable things in that lake. But anyway,
it's not too bad. I've been in there.
Yeah, good. So first one was in Shepparton, and then last one was in Echuca, which that was fun. It was all downstream, so swimming was a little bit easier. How have we gone from boxing to triathlons? I think
go back to boxing if you want.
Well, I find that more interesting because the cardio thing kind of just makes me a little bit sad. But
mate, this is a running podcast. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah, but my running ventures are, it's only small distances.
Yeah, but you also swim and you also ride a bike. So you're doing more stuff. You're going to do an Ironman?
I'd like to, but at the same time,
you're talking dumb distances again. So
that's
you're
the
welcome.
thing. I don't know I could run for that long without getting a little bit bored. So credit to those who can. But
this is sounding like one of those imposter things. I don't know that I could do it.
It's almost like you should have a podcast about that.
Man, the people that have sent me messages laughing at the fact that this podcast is turning into a running podcast, being that their host cannot even run to the front door to get the garbage bin out in time for the truck to come past. It's it's not lost on a lot of the people that were listening.
That has to be your challenge.
To beat the garbage truck every morning.
Well, you're not going to do a marathon, so start somewhere.
No, not at all. No, there was talk about doing a marathon over the course of a day, which is still a thing I'm debating.
Movie marathon or?
Oh, yeah, smash that. Absolutely smash it. The only people that Fitzy's not bad at watching a series. Like you tell him about a series, he'll watch that over and over. Have you watched Landman? We'll talk later.
I did want to mention that because that's what I'm going to have to binge.
Yeah, you're in for Landman now, yeah.
Dr. Pepper.
So, yeah. Anyway, marathons, etc. Yeah, triathlon. Like after you did your first one, like how many have you done since?
Done 3 in total.
See, that's enough to say that you know whether you're into it or not.
Yeah,
the fact that you've done 2 others after the first one sort of implies
I just like having something to focus on.
How much is your bike worth?
Well, mine was all second-hand gear, so I think in total I only paid like maybe $600, and that was including shoes.
Oh, really?
Because I'm
that's not committed at all.
Well, no, because I'm a little bit of I'm tight.
I
wasn't going to go.
Look, it's expensive. So a lot of the sports you'll find that they're quite elitist. So even doing I run, but the running that I do, not many people can afford to do the runs that I do
because of the fueling and everything associated with it.
Everything, paying your entry for the races. So
as in to get to Switzerland.
Yeah, well, if you're going to go and do the races, a lot of the races are all around the world. So if you're going to do those races, you have to be able to afford accommodation, your flights, pay the entry. Then you've got to be able to buy the gear that you've got to have. So it's expensive sport. And same with triathlon. You've got your running gear, you've got your bike, you've got your swimming stuff, and people might think that it's not too bad, but to buy a wetsuit for swimming, $600-700.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing rocking up to these triathlons and with my bike that probably wouldn't get a run by any of the other athletes, and they've got $10,000-12,000 bikes, and they're probably going a little bit quicker than me, but at the same time you think, well, where do you draw the line at? Is the technology doing all the work for you, sort of thing?
Probably in part, yes, but at the same time, I think that's the thing. Once you start getting into something, what do you spend your money in? And if that's something that helps you go back to it, then maybe that's right. why you do it. But
I remember when Leggy was all about carbon fibre bike and whatever. Like he decided he was going to start riding, and then I think two of the other boys got into it as well. And he goes, "Oh, I got this brand new stem. Like it's like a little part that goes on the top between your handlebar and the frame." And he's like, "Oh, I got this." I was like, "And?" He's like, "Yeah, it was like $800." I was like, "And?" I said, "Yeah, but why? Like, what's it?" Literally doesn't seem to do anything. But he goes, "Oh, no, it saved me 120 grams." I was like, that's at 25% body fat, mate. Don't come around here and tell me that you needed to save 120 grams on your bike.
That's the part, the expenditures part where I sort of, we're at the airport.
That's the Germans, they're back. Oh. So what are you looking like for? You can say the Germans are back.
Yeah, don't mention the war.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of UK listeners. No, they're not. There's a lot of people from Algiers. Shout out to Algiers. Big deals over there.
Yeah, if you'd read the statistics that were sent through, you'd know that.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, Zoe, thank you. I know the one person.
But yeah, I find it difficult to go into sports where you have to spend a lot of money because I'm incredibly competitive and I have to win. So if there's something that I have to spend a lot of money to win, I sort of go, well, can I use that money on something else?
Mate, if I had expendable cash, the money I would put into that bow that I very rarely use ever.
How often have you used it?
Well, I mean, it helps that my work is actually archery. So otherwise, I would not have used it much at all. But would love to spend more money on a new site, a new release, a new thing.
Would it make you better?
Oh, look, to be fair, I used another bloke's bow up in Benalla, and his bow was like $4,500. Amazing. But the arrows were super thin. It's like, I don't know if you've shot pistols before, but like if you use a 22 versus a 9mm versus like a police one, it's like your accuracy is like you can hit it in the same spot over and over, but the arrows are so much lighter and whatever else it is that you just like, they just go exactly where you want it. It wasn't even sighted in for me, but the thing was like going out to 70 and it was just hitting. I was just like, this is amazing. It was like the counterbalances on it, all sorts of stuff. And you're like, it does do it. Do I need that? Not even remotely. Do I enjoy using my bow just as much? Yeah. So like it was cool to be able to use it, but I was too scared to put it down. I was too worried that I'd like pull the trigger too early and dry fire it and the thing would shatter and I'd owe him $4,000. Like it was just, but you're just like, wow, there's some money you can spend on these. And had I, like, if I won the lottery or something, yeah, I probably would buy some stupid bow that I'm never going to use, but I'd probably get another surfboard as well, to be honest.
I enjoy it. It's the top of your list if you were to win the lottery.
Yeah, no, I love it, yeah. Oh, and obviously I'd make a podcast studio to do my podcasts once every 6 months, so definitely worthwhile investment on that one.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I mean, what's it? And then, because Leggy had that bike and it was like all carbon fibre, it was secondhand, but it was like super expensive. And then he had a stack and the thing just exploded because carbon fibre is not amazing. It doesn't just bend or take a chip or whatever it was. And then he had to get surgery to get half of it removed from his knee because it shattered and all went through there like a claymore. And I was like, yeah, that's not bad, that life. But he was mad for it. I don't think he's riding again still though. He's back doing refereeing in basketball, but I don't think he ever got back on it. But that's probably because he
not cycling anymore.
No. Anyway, it's an in-joke, which is probably not an in-joke anymore. Right. But yeah.
So you did your last triathlon in, what did you say, was it April?
In January this year.
This year. Yeah, it's probably the time up there, isn't it? It's pretty warm and there's a few.
Is that a Shep one, is it?
That was Echuca.
Oh, yeah.
Or Echuca Moama.
Yep.
Got to mention that. Keep both sides of the border happy.
Well, it's one town really, isn't it?
Yeah. Depends who you ask.
Yeah. Lucky no one listens to us up there or they'll be getting emotional over that.
Aubrey Wodonga. Same thing.
Yep.
So are you going to do more of the triathlon? Will you sign up for the Chuka one again next year?
Probably not this one because it's there's still a little bit of training involved in it. Like you can have a baseline fitness, but as I said, tend to throw everything into things. So if I don't think I've got enough time to actually get fit enough to be competitive, I probably might wait for the next opportunity. But I'm not going to say no to doing it again.
So how did you go when you did those? So I mean, you've gone boxing, you've bloodied up someone, you've done your triathlons. How did you go? Did it come out where you thought you were going to sort of finish up? Or
I would have liked to have finished a little bit higher, but
so for you, was it about the placing, or was it?
It's always about the placing for me.
Okay,
but realistically, each time doing it, I've improved on my time, so that's what I should be focusing on. But the swimming isn't exactly my strong suit, so I have to try and make up a lot of time in the ride and run. But then when you're on a bike, like I said that I was, it's probably hard to make up too much time against the carbon fibre warriors like you suggested, Chris.
Is there a pool and stuff up in Shep? Surely they have a pool.
Yeah,
but it's just a
Shep's a
matter of being able to get there.
They love it.
Yeah, there's plenty of facilities there, so I was able to train fairly well there, and it's probably just comes down to my ability more so than the facilities that are available.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of that's time though, being able to, like, you're only as good as what you do. But like, if there's, I mean, you're a farmer and have a full-time job, and you're a young dad, so it's like it's not the easiest thing to then also fit in swimming. You know, like if you want to go for a run, you can just throw some shoes on and go. Same as a bike, you can go for a run. The swimming parts, especially out country, it's the hardest thing to do. Probably.
And yeah, I think that was the hardest part to train for, because you got to pay to be able to train for it, which again is more of that cost that you were describing before, and the time. So having two boys under 2, and trying to give them and my wife some attention while also working at everything, you feel quite selfish then saying, all right, well, I'm going to go and swim for half an hour and then ride for 2 hours and then run for an hour. You sort of...
That comes up a lot. We had Nick on, who's got little ones. He's got his second little one that's just come along. He's the same. When I'd go running with him, training for his run, he always felt guilty about being out and spending time out running, and couldn't see, like, sometimes I'd sort of say, well, what about the benefits? You know, do you think your wife's going to be happy in, 10 years' time when you're still fit? And, I think like you taking that little bit of time for yourself is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely essential. And my wife and I do balance it quite well so that she's able to go to the gym and stuff as well, because it is for that reason I want to be able to play with my kids while they're young, and then when they're a little bit older, if they want to, if my sons want to start playing footy and they're like, hey, Dad, can we play in the same team? If that ever came up, well, yeah, I'll be fit enough to. So,
also, I think they take some. They watch kids watch
absolutely
what their parents do, and if they're seeing that you're motivated and out doing things, that's probably that little bit easier for them to go, well, yeah, I want to have drive and I want to do something as well.
Your missus trains as well. Like she was doing running first, isn't that the whole reason?
Well, I mean, she's done everything, and I guess that's as a result of both her parents having done sports while she was growing up. But she's done triathlons, she's done Olympic weightlifting. Make the podcast about her now, but she was actually one of the coaches for the Victorian.
Sure, she'll be mortified.
No, she'll be loving it. She was one of the coaches for the school age Olympic lifting team for Victoria or something. At some stage, went overseas for various competitions. She's done all forms of dancing to quite some level, and I think that's why we click quite well. We're very competitive. And
all forms of dancing?
All forms.
Okay.
Yep. In a competitive sense.
Yeah, no,
well,
what you got to do for $1?
Better click one of those buttons now or I'll get into a lot of trouble. Yeah, that'll do.
Actually, probably not that one, because that sounds like someone sliding down a pole.
Okay, we can't say it anymore. But you, because it seemed like she was the one that got you into running, because she was doing it first and then you started doing it.
Well, ironically, I think the last time I was here was because she was doing the Great Ocean Road Marathon, which, again, that's far too much running for me.
And you did some Team Lulu thing as well.
You should have a look at that one. That's a good run.
If I was going to do a marathon, I think that's probably the one I'd do, just because I'd have something to look at.
Yeah.
But, we did. We also did Spartan with our Team Lulu shirts on. So Team Lulu.
Did you have shirts on or shirts off? Because I see those Spartan guys like doing their thing and they love to pull their gear off. And
see, I'm a little bit more humble than that, so I kept mine on.
Good. You just didn't have the abs for it.
Yeah, with their tops off.
The blokes take their tops off, they're in pretty good shape.
They are, but they're still flogs.
Yeah, they're good rigs though.
Yeah.
Like, both can be true.
No, we kept our shirts on, and they were for Team Lulu, which we had the ovarian cancer ribbon on them as well for my mother-in-law. So that was her first time going through that battle.
Were you raising money to help her, or was it just a show support?
We were trying to raise a little bit of money to go to the Ovarian Cancer Foundation, but it was also she's sports mad, so she played tennis competitively her whole life and done triathlons and everything, and that was obviously a time where she couldn't do that, so it was kind of allowing her to live vicariously through us to some extent. So, we did a Spartan race, and then we did a team triathlon with my wife and her dad wearing the T-shirts again.
What was that team one? Was that one where you each did a leg?
Yeah, so Sarah did the swim, her dad did the bike, and then I did the run, which that's a fairly common thing, particularly in the Chukamayama triathlon now. So it's only a sprint event typically, but it allows people to maybe set record times, for instance, because they might only want to do the 5K as quick as they can.
What's a sprint distance? What's that mean?
It depends where you do it, but typically it's, I think, 500 metres swimming, 20K ride, and then a 5K run. So it's usually you're over and done within an hour.
So it's certainly not a sprint. That's
yeah. I mean, it's deceptive, but in terms of like an Ironman's stupid distances, it's very much a sprint compared to that, because it might be less than an hour and a half's actual exercise time as opposed to 8 or 9 hours sort of thing.
And is that sort of the distances that you've been focusing on when you have done them? Or
yeah, and I think main reason, harking back to timing and not wanting to be away from the family too much, is to train for anything greater than that would be so time taxing that the sprint was sort of like, okay, well I can do a few swims and a few runs and I'll be fit enough, versus actually needing to spend weeks and weeks in the pool and whatever else. So, yeah.
Sorry, Chris is just on his phone. He's
just checking the stats.
Oh, you guys are welcome to bloody have a yarn about it. I'm just trying to check what the weather in Algiers is. I don't know why you guys are being like this.
What is it?
No, I'm lying. Way to call me out, you jerk. Yeah. So we're happy with. Are we happy with triathlons? We're done.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy. I'm happy.
Do we want to talk about
guys doing some boxing, triathlon?
Yeah. Do we want to talk about like actually getting in the ring?
Can do.
Yeah. Obviously, you've got your 12 weeks in the lead up. Was there any time in your lead up to the boxing during the 12 weeks where you're like, don't know if I'm actually about this?
Every day. In all honesty, it is that, like, every day you sort of go through that fight or flight thing of, do I really want to do this? What are the dangers? And particularly,
is there much sparring?
Yeah, there's plenty of that. And because we were all newbies for the most part, that's why I actually wanted to go to the fight classes where the sparring was quite well choreographed, let's say, when you're actually with the guys who've done it for a while. Whereas when we were doing it with some of the people who'd done less of it,
it's more, yeah.
Well, they kind of don't know where the limit is. So
it's kind of like a fight.
Basically, you'd be sparring against someone who doesn't necessarily throw hard enough, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to cop it worse than that. Can you throw a bit harder? But then you'd be against someone else who's just throwing these wild haymakers, and you're like, wow, that nearly knocked me out, and this is just meant to be sort of touch sparring.
It's a common problem with a lot of martial arts, with like the newbies going with newbies is like dangerous because they don't know how to they end up pulling someone's elbow out of their socket. They do an ACL, they do whatever else it is because people don't know what the limits are. And same as boxing or kung fu or whatever else it is they're doing. Like people just throw a punch going, I know I just have to throw it to get it in there.
Yep.
But like whereas a professional will be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, he's
well
open. Yeah, they're like, he's well open. I'm just going to drop him if I do this.
Well, the other interesting thing was the group. It's like we kind of got matched up based on weight classes against the person we were going to fight against. But even in the group, there was a diverse range. So it was both genders, different weight classes. So when you're doing your sparring, you might be up against there was one guy I was against, he was 126 kilos. So when you're sparring him, it's like, okay, I might be fitter and faster.
You might get 10 shots in, but his one that he lands on you is going to probably hurt a bit.
Exactly right. And if
just going to run around just like slapping him around and then just going, but if he throws one in the next.
And that actually happened. Like there was one thing where we were sparring and, I got a good couple of shots in and then I was off balance in that one punch. Like, it downed me. And the coach's like, I know you're not knocked out, but that didn't look great. Couple of plays out. Yeah. And then there'd be times.
Did it rock you though? Like, were you just like, oh, geez, weak in the knees and all that sort of stuff?
No, I didn't have any of that. It was more just like the white line fever kicked in because I wanted to try and get back up and almost prove myself.
Yeah, you're like, it's a fight now.
Basically, yeah. And then there'd be other times where, for whatever reason, you were matched up with one of the girls, and that was one of those times where I was like, okay, well, we've just got to have a limit, and all the guys amongst the group were like, well, I can't morally go ahead with this and hit a girl, but then you cop a haymaker to the ear that you weren't expecting. Oh, what do I do now? So
now you're like, oh, now it's equal rights, equal fights.
Something.
It's 2000s.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's like, let's play the game.
Yeah, something like that.
So the sparring, the sparring gets you ready for it, but then you also then have the fact that you're going to get into a ring, potentially get knocked out in front of a crowd. Like there's one thing to go, let's like challenge someone to a fight and then like go, look, we're going to do it Sunday at 3:00, you and me, let's go and do it.
I think the strange thing was even going into, we had to wear headgear and everything. Yep. So knockouts weren't necessarily going to happen. And our coach was sort of like, oh, well.
Sure, you can still get knocked out with a headgear on.
Absolutely you can, but it has to be, a very well-placed punch. But going into it, our coach was like, oh, none of you are really going to be throwing that hard. And my fight was the first one on the card.
Wow.
Well, yeah, me and the guy I was fighting against, we both came off and the coach was like, oh, you actually thought one of you was going to get knocked out. I didn't know you were going to throw that hard. So,
well, was he just expecting it to be an exhibition sort of sparring?
Basically, yeah. And, to some extent you would understand why based on the training we'd done. But I think both of us, once we got in there, it was like, well, we're both dominant males.
But he must have realised that training versus this is it, like, is vastly different.
I don't know that any of us had really shown enough during that training for him to understand what we might have been capable of. I don't know. But, I think some of us sort of shocked him a little bit in a good way.
When you got in there, were you worried, like Chris just said, talked about, being worried about being knocked out? Was that something that you were worried about, or were you more in there to sort of go to prove that you could fight better than that person, or you just wanted to win? Or
I think by the time the actual fight night came around, it was almost just having completed a task. So I was very nervous leading up to it, but when I think back now, I don't really know why, other than maybe it was the idea of being in front of a crowd or something like that. But there was no point where I thought, oh, I could get knocked out here or this is going to hurt or anything, because I'd become accustomed to the idea, well, I'm going to get hit. It's unlikely that I'm really going to get hurt.
I think I can relate to that. That's why I asked the question, because when Chris was talking about being knocked out, I'm thinking if I ever did something like that, I don't think I'd care about being knocked out in front of anyone.
Well, and
I don't think I'd be embarrassed. I don't think I'd care. I don't really have that sort of bravado where I think I can belt someone up or anything like that. It'd be more just about, like you said, a task type thing where you want to complete what you've done.
Yeah, and
so
I think
I can relate to that.
I think if you go into it worrying about that or being so consumed by that, you're probably going to actually get hurt because you're doing it for the wrong reason. Whereas if you go into it with a very determined purpose, which is, I guess, what I was doing it for, you're going to enjoy it more for a start. And in terms of getting knocked out, well, I mean, I reckon I've been knocked out a few times on the footy field in front of a crowd, and I got over that pretty quick.
Yeah, but that's like you get sniped, you get, like people shepherd you and they do whatever. Like someone goes to speck you, they knee you in the back of the head and that sort of stuff. Like people get knocked out at footy all the time. You're like, well, they don't even see it coming. Like it's not a thing. Whereas that's actually the aim in boxing.
Yeah,
is to like floor the other person. And there's not really much else in the way of like, the fighting is pretty brutal and it's literally just going which man is better. Like
basically,
like as opposed to the other sports. Like if I'm playing basketball in front of a crowd, I'll be like, cool, we're a team. Playing footy, sure, we're a team. Like I've dislocated fingers, I've had blood noses, been knocked out, whatever else it is. And it's like, you're just one in the team, and it's like you just expect that to happen. Whereas, like they're literally in a room. It's very gladiatorial where they're both the people like you fucking murder the other person. You know, like it's a different vibe. There's nowhere to hide, and it's literally just on you. And people's perception of like fighters is vastly different. You know, like if you play a contact sport, people are like, yeah, that's cool, and they get around you. But like you watch a fighter, and they're like, that guy's a little bitch. He did this and did that. Like not that any of those people have got in a ring or would get in a ring or whatever else it is, but it's just I don't know. It's just a different vibe where you go in there, and then like losing there is. It just seems to be different. People just look at it differently. Like, oh, you know, like you're a little bitch. You got beat up by that dude or whatever.
You're right, because I don't really look at it as a sport so much. Not that I don't think that they're fit or anything. I just don't look at it. I'm not interested.
It's not your jam.
It's not my thing at all. Where I look at it and go, I can appreciate that they're very fit and all the rest, but I just you'd never sit there and see me watching boxing or anything.
Yeah, like it's not an interest for you.
Just no interest. No.
Likewise, I could care less about watching someone running around.
Hey, you say this, but you've been. I've seen you. You've spent more time at a running race than like a lot of people I know. You ran with us for a little bit. Well, actually,
I did not run with you.
You walked with us. At the end of a race.
But that's supporting you guys as a crew. That's not a
again. That's having different purpose, right?
Yeah. That's just me going. You guys are trying to achieve something that's an endurance event, which is like I'm impressed for you guys doing it. I have no interest in doing it. Whereas, like, if a mate of mine was like going to boxing, like I'd be emotionally invested in it.
Definitely made or something. I'd be there, like to
but also like watching a mate of mine like losing a fight, like it'd be hard pressed not to like I get why people jump in the ring and lose their shit over it. You know, like you're like, oh, you got to jump in and back them up.
The emotional responses of the crowd, I think, was the most interesting thing for me because like everyone, there was around 200 people there. That turned up on the night.
Were any of them calling out bitch or anything like that?
Well, that's the thing. While I was in the ring, I was like, oh, it sounded like the crowd was really loud and everything. And in hindsight, they probably weren't because the fights afterwards, everyone was like pretty silent because I think some people probably weren't expecting it to be quite as confronting, for lack of a better phrase.
Were they as violent as you guys, as the ones after?
I would say no.
There you go. Maybe they saw the show in the first one, and then the rest of it was a bit of a letdown.
Potentially,
but it could have been that, or there might have been people in the audience going, "My wife or my husband's going to be in the next one," and that's a lot more aggressive than I thought it was going to be, and now I'm concerned.
I think you watch the faces of some people in the crowd as well, and you can see them trying to digest what's going on because, like you mentioned, if you're not necessarily into that sort of sport, it's hard to sit there and watch it. And you watch the big fights and everyone's really revved up in the crowd because that's what they're there for. They specifically like that. Whereas this crowd, for the most part, the couple who own the gym, they're well known in the community. They do a lot for the community. So everyone was like, oh, well, we'll get around it. But I think some of them, even though they knew it was a boxing match, probably weren't expecting quite the spectacle, let's say, that they saw, because it is.
They were expecting Rocky and they got.
Well,
what did they get, Fitzy?
Yeah, where are you going with that?
They got Jake Paul and Mike Tyson.
I didn't get paid that much.
I wasn't thinking along those lines where it was like a letdown. I think it's more grassroots is what I was thinking. Like they were expecting this big.
Well, and potentially that, but I think it was also they didn't even conceptualise it. Oh, actually, people are going to be punching one another. I think it was just, it's a fight night. We'll go along, have some beers and watch something entertaining. But then when you actually see two grown men or two grown women in some of the cases almost trying to purposefully hurt one another, it can be quite confronting.
Almost. You're punching. You're literally trying to punch a bloke in the head. You're literally trying to impose violence on someone else.
Yep.
Like you are trying to hurt them until they give up.
Yes.
It doesn't get much more basic in a sport than two men into one man leaves. You know, like that's where I think it's very and watching people's responses as well. Like when people go in there and then somebody like people do start fighting and you're like, I did not see that person like that before. And it's one of those things it's like that can't be unseen. Or it's like when you and like I used to have it when I was in the cops, for example, and there'd be like burglars that come into a house and then the husband would be like, oh no, take whatever you want. And then the missus and him would not be the same as they were before that because he didn't defend her or do whatever else it is. And then likewise, I've had it go the other way where somebody's come in and then old mate's just gone full crazy and just like headbutted old mate, kicked the crap out of him, put him in hospital, and then they're like, oh, "How dare you? Who am I living with? I live with a monster or whatever." Like it goes either way. It's an interesting thing once you have, like, you actually have a fight involved. Whereas, like if someone runs 100 miles, you're just like, that's impressive, and I can't even fathom that.
Yeah,
that doesn't register to me. Whereas if something happens right in front of people, like when there's a fight and you see something and you're like, oh, that's full on. But whereas you wouldn't sit and watch Fitzy run 160K. You can't. Like, you physically can't keep up with him. You can't do it, and you can't comprehend it because it's not something you can do. Whereas you can sit there and see something happen right in front of you and you're like, it takes seconds. But like you see your friend on the ground, or like in footy when like somebody cheap shots someone's and you're like, how could someone do that?
Yep.
But there's usually a player or two players on the team that are like quite happy to just come past and be enforcers and just late hit people and do whatever. And then you see some dude on the ground like wigging out, doing the funky chicken thing on the ground or whatever. And it's different, man. You see that and then you're like, something inside you changes. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
And no doubt that's what happens when the boys go to war and stuff. As soon as their first mate's dead, they're like,
well, we're still very animalistic to some extent with that. So.
And boxing or MMA or whatever else it is like, that's what I do like when people do jiu-jitsu, because it's like, it's not actually like, it's actually like, it's great sport and you can actually be competitive and you don't need to hurt someone. People do get hurt, obviously, by accident. Sometimes they get random elbows and do whatever, but it's a competitive sport that they can do without that sort of thing. Whereas boxing, you can sort of pull your punches, but if you pull your punches and the other one doesn't, they're going to whack you.
Yep.
That's why, like, you can just every time I see sparring, starts off people are jovial, and then somebody just clips somebody, and then you just see the other guy going, okay, and then they clip the other person, and then next minute
that happened mid-fight for both me and Jesse, who I was fighting against.
It's Jesse. Call him out. Got him.
No,
we knew it.
Respect where it's due. No, I think the punches started getting heavier and heavier because for no other reason other than that animalistic tendency takes over. And you're like, well, he's hitting me harder. I've got to go harder again. Yeah. And it just goes on and on and on. And, we were wearing 16-ounce gloves, so lots of padding, but you start to feel mate's nose crunch under the glove, and it's like, that might. But
it's also your head rocking back and forth.
Yeah,
is where you get knocked out. It's not
there's
just
different size gloves,
trauma.
is there?
Yeah, so typically, and don't quote me on this, but I think like professional boxers will use, let's say, a 10-ounce glove when they're actually in the ring, and the number of ounces equates something like the padding amount that's in it. So when you're training, you might use a slightly lighter, less padded glove because it's not as taxing on your arms and all the rest of it. But when you're actually having to fight, and in our instance, we had heavily padded gloves, so we weren't going to do as much damage. But it also means the chances of a knockout are reduced, which I'm okay with that, I guess, in hindsight. But there's a lot that goes into it that I probably hadn't even considered going into training for it. So by the end of it, I ended up with 3 sets of gloves, like 2 different training ones, and then the gloves we actually used on the night.
Still not as expensive as triathlon, though.
Absolutely not. No. Much.
I mean, not until the surgery where you're in hospital for 3 months and you've got a specialist trying to get you to talk again. There's a fair bit of money there.
The hard part was actually spending money on a mouth guard because I thought it's only really for one fight, and it was very expensive. But then
compared to the $4,000 of each implant that you have to get to put a new tooth back in.
And I still remember training at footy with you, and you're throwing an errant elbow just because. But my teeth stood up pretty well to that, so can't complain too much.
No, I don't remember throwing elbows.
I do. I never forget that.
Not at my own team.
Been tracking you down ever since.
You got here the boxing gloves come in different weights, basically for different levels of padding and protection, but also for different training. So you got like 8 to 10 ounces. They reckon are suitable for bag work and pad work for smaller individuals or those with faster hands. And you got 12 ounces is the standard size for lighter training and pad work. 14 ounces are ideal for general training and sparring for average-sized individuals, and 16 ounces are recommended for sparring and heavier training or larger individuals who prefer more padding.
I'm glad you did all this research.
Yeah, I did it before I got in here.
Yeah, it's good.
So, good times.
Yeah.
It's pretty good from memory.
Yeah, just off the top of my head.
Yeah. Just a couple of bullet points.
Yeah, so would you... Like, are you happy that you've done it now, or would you like to do another one? Obviously, you and Jesse have got stuff to deal with offline, but...
Look, I would like to do another one just for the sake of getting a win, I think is a big thing for me. So now it's not necessarily... Initially, it was, okay, check that one off. I've accomplished doing it, but now it's like, oh, well, I lost. I need to win. Otherwise it's
just on the win, the loss part before you go on to whether you're going to do another one or not.
Always got a funny grin.
How does it work with, you said you got a loss, but was it, I mean, I don't really know.
It was based on scorecard. So typically you've got 3 judges and I don't know the full way all the scorecards work, but it's kind of like, let's say you've been competitive, but the other person was just slightly better. They'll get 10 points, you'll get 9. Or if they're completely dominant, they'll get 10 and you might only get 6 or 7 or something like that. And that's how they work it out at the end. So each round will get scored by the 3 judges, and then the cumulative total is how it's determined. So, and I actually didn't see the scorecard. I don't know if they even kept them, but what I was told was basically, it was just one judge gave one more point to old mate or whatever. And at the end of it, like I said, I'd like to say I'm pretty good mates with the guy I fought against as a result of all of it. So it kind of doesn't matter too much. And I wonder if it was, let's say we were against a different boxing club and I hadn't been training with this guy for 12 weeks, I think there'd probably be that sort of vendetta style response from me. But as it is, I'm like, okay, well, I lost to a bloke. It's not a bad bloke.
But you also see, I find a lot of the time, you look at Connor or all these other blokes, they obviously talk trash because they've got to sell tickets.
Mm.
But then afterwards you see them and
they'd be best mates for sure.
Yeah, and they're like, man, hats off to you, that was an impressive fight or whatever. Well, some aren't, some are disrespectful. But
you look at it behind the scenes, essentially that's their colleague, right? Because that's their workplace. So you can't have beef with everyone all the time, even though you guys try to call it out on here, obviously.
That's shit to work. Speaking of Peter Hanlon, loser.
It's been a while since you've done that, so it's good.
Yeah.
So you look at that behind the scenes, of course they're going to be mates because they are actually working together to some extent to promote their sport.
And it's also they've gone through that. Nobody else really understands what they've been through. Like, I mean, their trainers would and stuff, but like they're literally going through the same training camp, same time. They're both trying to cut weight. They're doing whatever. Like their shared experience is closer than anything else that anyone else has done. So, but I also think if you were to fight some randomer that you didn't know, would be completely different because you wouldn't see them as your mate.
No, and I think that was the biggest part about this. If it had been a complete random, you start to analyse it all and go, would I have actually started punching harder or like would I have reacted differently? And I'll never know unless I actually go for another one. But as it was, he was a good bloke. So
he was a good bloke. Not anymore. Old Jesse. We need to work out what his last name is so we can get him.
Nah, I won't go that far. I'll get myself in trouble.
So what challenges would you reckon you're going to do 2025? Do you reckon you do another boxing match then, or are you sitting the next one out?
Well, I had wanted to potentially do High Rocks this year, but probably left my run a bit
Spartan?
late. No,
that's that where they can get around with their shirts off inside of.
Yeah, I'm just looking for excuses to get my shirt off, basically.
Yeah.
But
It's
like you do various stages, we'll say, of basically aerobic exercise, and in between each stage is a 1 kilometre sprint. Effectively, you got to run as quick as you can, and typically, again, it's sort of that hour to an hour and a half time, depending on how quick you do it.
It's CrossFit, it's Spartan,
it's CrossFit without skill, which works well for me because
I don't think CrossFit use skill.
Oh, you got to be able to do the Olympic lifting.
I think like it's all the things are set sort of rope pulls and weights and all the
sled
rest of it.
pushes and there's wall balls, so there's a bit of CrossFit in it, but it's very much the cardio side of CrossFit. There's sled pushing and all that, but you don't have to try and lift a barbell above your head with the heaviest weight or anything like that. So
I take the piss, but they are very, very fit individuals. So
absolutely
do it like you. Yeah.
Mate, I'm an arrogant flog as it is. If I had abs and pecs, mate, I would be the biggest flog going around. I would 100%.
I would remind you of it every day too.
Well, you wouldn't need to remind me because I wouldn't have a shirt on.
Some offence needed, but you still take your shirt off at any point in time anyway.
It's because I'm fat and I'm overheating. Trying to get more breeze to stop my sweating. Dirty bastard.
I'm the opposite. I had a skin check the other day and she goes, right, I take your clothes off. I'm like, oh, do I have to? Like, yeah, we've got to check your skin.
You just didn't want to blind her with the abs, that was all.
No.
He's like, the last time I did this, I got married. He's like, I can't do it anymore. The ladies love me. Yeah, so boxing, you do it again?
Yeah, I think so.
High rocks, and so high rocks, you're like looking at 2025.
I think so, yeah, because it's probably, again, this is getting back to that idea of what you lean into as your natural state of your body, let's say, and my genetics probably play more so into that running and aerobic type stuff, even if I would rather be 110 kilos and 4% body fat.
I love these I don't enjoy it, but I'm better at it, so I'm just going to do it.
No, and maybe there's a bit of a study on the imposter side of that. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
But then the converse of that is my wife wants to keep doing these marathons, but her quads will grow if I do squats. Like that's where her natural abilities are. I'm like, don't do the marathons, go and do the weightlifting. That's what you're good at, sort of thing. Yep. But I think everyone wants what they don't have or what they aren't.
I'm not really overly keen on marathons.
No, fair enough.
If she challenged you to do a marathon and beat her, would you be?
Absolutely, I'd be all over.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The last marathon she did, I think I ended up just.
Did you think you could beat that time? Did you go, I can do better than that?
I better not say that on air, but I think.
Obviously.
I think you should.
Obviously you did. Yeah, you got to call it out, mate. Be accountable.
She'll make me actually do the marathon. But that day I ended up.
She's going
running.
to now anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
It's happening.
I ended up just running.
What did she do a marathon in?
This is really bad, but I probably don't even know what the time was, and it's probably because she.
Do you want me to ring her or Bluetooth her in?
You could. She won't answer. No,
Oh, that's a challenge.
I don't know where to go to.
You were saying what time you think she would do.
Well, I don't even know what's a good time because it's one of those things that I haven't. Yeah, and she's finished all of the marathons and half marathons she's done, and all credit to her. It's one of those things where I think marathons are very much almost a war of attrition where you just watch people drop out and around you. So even if you finish it, you're still incredible as far as I'm concerned.
Right,
good save.
So good save, yep. Yeah. So well done, wifey. But if she decided she was going to challenge you, that's what I take from that.
100%, I'll be all over it.
And I would beat her. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Right.
That's fair. Yeah, no dramas. Are you both going to run with a kid each in a stroller, even it up that way, or are we talking backpacks? Or
I'd probably just take both kids to prove a point.
Oh, that's a huge call, and I guarantee you she will call you out on that bullshit.
No, because she also knows how they'd react, and it wouldn't be healthy for anyone involved. They'd both be screaming the whole way.
Yeah, but they'd also be throwing up because they've been bounced around all over the place. They'd be hilarious throwing up in the front and back.
I'm pretty sure they do a marathon in Shepparton.
Probably.
I think they do.
Yeah, there is a running festival. She did a half marathon a couple of years ago. Yep. But Will, the oldest boy, he's done a couple of park runs with me in the running stroller, and again, that's a challenge for me.
What time's he get?
Well,
he's in the stroller.
Yeah. Typically,
so he's still done it.
And this
quicker
is
than you.
This is his competitive nature and
Yeah.
probably mine. But on average, when I run with him in the pram, it's about 22 minutes.
In the pram?
Yeah. Now, there is the extra bonus challenge for me.
It's about 10 minutes quicker than Chris.
Closer to 13.
Keep in mind, typically without the pram, I'm sitting around 20 minutes. So
yeah.
But there's a couple other sort of semi-fit dads, let's say, that'll run with prams. So I have to beat all of them, and then it's okay. Well, I've beaten them. I've got to start beating other people, even though I've got the pram. So
20 minutes for a 5K. Would you do 20 minutes in 5K?
About that, yeah.
He does it in 18.
No, Fitzy just does it. Fitzy just does it over and over and over again for another 17 times.
Yeah,
that's all.
I
think we've got
I'm about 20 minutes now.
We've got Joe from the Average Shows. Joe, I don't know if I'm saying I won't say his last name. I can't say it. B, I don't know if he wants me to, but he does.
He loves it.
I think he gets around 21 minutes or below. It's not.
Yeah, we did the park run at Lara that day.
Oh yeah, I didn't see any of you.
Mate, finish line.
Mate, they'd all had a shower and they were waiting for me by the time I got there to the end. I like to say it's because I'm being social with the gang.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about.
That's a slower one, that one.
I get
it. It's got a bit of an uphill in it.
Well, and that's the thing. The Shepparton one, again, it's all flat and it's around the lake. So it's saying you do 20 minutes for a park run there is probably not a great call out, but yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I'll still claim it, absolutely. Even though when you click the
there's a lot of people that'd be very happy with a 20-minute 5K. A lot of people. It's pretty much only the really good runners that go,
Well, and that's it. There are some very, very good runners that run a Shep, and they're done within, 16
Actually, you know
minutes.
what? They don't. They probably don't do that. They're quite happy just to see people out running. They don't care.
You've got the competitive elitists who are probably the B grade realistically, and then the A grade, like, oh, I'm really good, but I just want to support everyone. That's what I found in sports. But we'll have to see once Henry's old enough, because we better call him out now. I've spoken about Will, otherwise I'll get in trouble again.
Yeah.
Once he's old enough to go on the running
mortified
we'll
about you.
Yeah, well,
is he competitive? You're sort of seeing a bit of a side to him already, where you start to think that he's going to be.
Both of them are already showing certain signs, and it's whether it's healthy or not, who knows. But the most interesting one recently with Henry's only 7 months old, so he's still in the full-time push-up position most of the time. But he'll try and play with something and just get frustrated straight away, because it's like, I want to be up and running. Why can't I do that? And he sees his older brother running around and seeing his frustration, that's the competitive side already starting to come out. So
meanwhile, the husband and wife sitting here calling each other out for not being able to squat enough, and they're doing marathon stuff. Yeah, no, I'm sure the kids won't have any issues.
It's healthy competition. Surely.
It's all fine. I've got a couple of nephews at the moment that are one is 2 years older than the other, but the younger one is really, really competitive. And they came down here not too long ago for the fun run that we have just in the local one here. And the kids do a 1K run. And the younger one, mate, when it started, he pushed his way through people to take off, and the other one couldn't care less. He was sort of just running all slow, tripped over at one stage. I mean, he struggles with the coordination side of things, but they had a great time.
Yeah, it's good.
But the other one, the younger one, he's going to be a little athlete. It's all in his veins.
Needs to be more of that, I reckon.
Do we want to talk about farms and stuff?
Can do.
Let's do it on the next one. We're already at an hour and 16.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Do it on the next one. So
just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just do it. Simple.